Why? What's changed in the last 5 days, as far as you're concerned? I mean, you've said he's a decent man.
Well, it was on Friday, actually, that I decided it was time. I'll be honest, I've been very distressed by Mr. Blair's behaviour for several years in terms of the way I think he's removed the idealism from politics by taking a supposedly left-of-centre party and calling it Labour or New Labour, and then basically saying that we have to be pragmatic. The left is really, in these overly consumerist times,
he also said you have to have an ethical foreign policy, didn't he?
Absolutely, and absolutely, this is not ethical, is it? This is a Christian country with supposedly a Christian leader who somehow think that the answer to the future is preemptive action. Now, to me, preemptive action is every bit as dangerous a concept as the initial concept of creating the atomic bomb. And by the way, that was created for the same kind of deterrent purposes by the same nation, and I do not believe that this is any more safe than that.
So you've lost faith in him, have you?
Well, because until last week, I thought it was bluff. I really did. I thought he's trying to keep the pressure up until the last moment, but he's making so many damaging statements, and he's bullying the UN.
You have lost. Let me bully you a little. He has lost faith.
I don't know. How can I say? You know, to lose belief, you have to...
Were you writing him off, or are you saying he...
No, if I was writing him off, I wouldn't be here. If I thought that man was not listening to anybody, I wouldn't be here.
You'd still vote for him?
No, I wouldn't vote for him. I would never vote for him again. Never vote for him again, because he's gone beyond the bluff. He's now bullying the UN on behalf of
bullying?
Mr.
Persuading,
Bush.
he would say.
Well, I'd say bullying. You have to be... you cannot ignore statements like the UN needs to prove its relevance. You cannot ignore the fact that America could sit there and say, you either agree with us or you're irrelevant.
15 members of the Security Council, unanimous, signed up to Resolution 1441, calling on Iraq to disarm.
And it's for the same reason... Listen, it's the...
Even Syria,
it's the same
against
reason,
all expectations.
It's the same reason, right, that if they pass this new resolution, which seems a lot more unlikely considering that France and Germany are completely saying there's no need for it, if they pass the new resolution, it will be for the same reason they passed the first one, because they are afraid of extinction. And to me, that is bullying.
What kind of Prime Minister do you want? If you don't want a man who leads on his convictions?
I want somebody who leads on his convictions until the point that they're public.
Until the point that you disagree with them?
No, until the point that 90% of the public disreagrees with them.
That's the hard time. That's what he's paid for, isn't it? Take hard decisions, not to be a populist.
You're not paid to put people's lives in danger and ignore their opinion on that very subject. No one is paid to do that.
He says failure to act would lead not to peace, but to a bloodier conflict in the future. That's what he says.
Well, I will take the future compared to right now, because failure to act may mean absolutely we know the dangers of Saddam Hussein. We know absolutely we can't afford to leave him alone. Why have we left him alone for 12 years, right? Why did we leave him there 10 years ago? And now, at the point when Sharon is bombing the West Bank, we're going to decide to take on Saddam.
So they gave diplomacy a chance for 12 years. Even you have to admit 12 years is long enough, isn't it?
I have no sympathy with Saddam Hussein. I have no sympathy with him. He should be gone. We need him gone in order to stabilise the region. But you cannot do this at the moment when the entire fundamentalist terrorist network around the world is waiting for this to legitimise what they want to do.
How do you think you've contributed to the debate over Iraq?
Well,
I mean, if you take Shoot the Dog, which made Blair and Bush out to be fools and being described as rather a vicious...
It's called satire, actually.
Described as rather a vicious attack by some people.
Well, it's not, is it? It's satire. And by the way, it's satire from the same people that show exactly the same stuff with exactly the same animation, exactly the same character references every Saturday on ITV at 10:30. But
you wanted a serious debate. How does that kind of thing contribute to a serious debate?
That's what I'm here for now. 8-9 months ago, no one wanted it. And believe me, we're talking about a generation which has so little desire for politics in its music that I knew that if I was going to be ahead of the game and try and get people to discuss this, I had to do it with some humour. And sure enough, even the humour, at that stage in time, it was something people did not want to hear about. Now that they're deluged with it, it's okay. I can come out here and I'm relatively safe. At that point in time, I wanted to write it, make the statements as as broadly and as funnily as I could in the video to make sure that before people were too freaked out to talk, they laughed their way into things.
But things like, so Cherie, my dear, could you leave the way clear for sex tonight? Tony, 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 I know that you're horny, but there's something about that bush that ain't right.
Tell me what
does that contribute?
Okay, I'll tell you what it... Okay, can I read my own lyrics for a second? Excuse me. I'll tell you what it contributes. The idea...
Right at the top.
The idea is not anything to do... Now, Americans turned this into that they were having a homosexual affair, because, of course, that's kind of the joke that was in the video, right? But actually, what it means is, Tony, 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 the idea is that she's saying she's going to withhold sex because there's something about that bush ain't right. Do you get the little joke in there? Bush, American term for bush.
But what does it contribute to the debate?
It was to bring it to people's attention. And do you not think, by any chance, because you're still not giving me any break here, do you not think, I don't know how closely you were watching popular culture at that time, but I think I dragged that argument into the mainstream, out of the political chattering classes, or whatever you would call them. I dragged that out of the political classes into the mainstream 2 or 3 weeks before it was going to get there. And I would say, at this point in time, when we're supposedly in such a bloody rush, that those 2-3 weeks were actually, it was worth what I put up with. It was worth losing the record, no one playing the record, no one playing the video. It was worth it because when I was attacked for doing it, it came into the mainstream. And that's exactly why I'm here again today.
People say it's an easy subject, anti-war protest.
I don't think this is an easy subject. It's not an anti-war.
Plenty of precedents for that, anti-war, anti-this war in particular.
Oh, sorry, what were the precedents for this? In entertainment.
Plenty of people in the past.
Who talked before me?
About this particular... I'm not talking about this particular war, in previous wars.
So what was the thing that I was contributing when I first talked about this?
You tell me.
I brought it into the mainstream because I'm a pop singer, and there's almost no way of bringing politics into the mainstream these days unless you're not a politician. So I'm absolutely convinced that I was one of the first people screaming that we needed to have this chat, and that brought it forward. I'm very convinced that the actual date that they wanted the debate to start was September the 11th. I saw the speech that Bush made from Capitol Hill on the night of September the 11th when nothing had gone off and everyone was thanking God that nothing had gone off. And I saw that speech and it made me absolutely aware. I couldn't understand around the time of the World Cup and the Jubilee why no one was talking about this.
You've taken a lot of criticism, as you say. You've walked into dangerous
waters. And I'll take a lot more.
Noel Gallagher says, George is now trying to make social comment. This is the guy who hid who he actually was from the public for 20 years. Now, all of a sudden, he's going to say something about the world. I find it laughable. That's before you get to the song, which is diabolical. What do you think
that's a laughable statement. What, the fact that I did not want to share my sexuality with the world in this current media atmosphere, the fact that I didn't want to share my sexuality with the world means that I have no right to talk about politics. This is not an intelligent man. He's not someone you should throw quotes at me from, really. If you're going to find criticism, find it from Mr. Murdoch. You know, Mr. Murdoch attacked me solidly on Sky News, in the New York Post, and in The Sun. And what he would do would be he would print these slurs in the New York Post in such a way that when they reprinted them in The Sun, its sister newspaper, I could only sue on the basis of it being reprinted from the American source. And the American source would have been much harder to sue. So there was a campaign...
What worries you about the New York Post?
Well, what shouldn't worry me about the New York Post? It's a fascist newspaper.
A washed-up pervert.
Well, why should I worry about that? Apart from the fact, I mean, really, why would I worry about that? I don't worry about the Daily Star. I don't worry about the Daily, you know, the Sport. I don't worry about the Sun or the Mirror. Why would I worry about that? I do find it absolutely unbelievable that they're able to call a homosexual man a pervert for having been caught cruising. I do find that quite laughable, that is not suable.